I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. The war continues, the war against the jihadists. And over these last days, two incidents, both of which require explication to understand the significance. One in the Indian Ocean basin, the Somalia coast, another in the Mediterranean basin in Libya itself. I'll begin with Tom Joscelyn of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy, and his colleague Bill Roggio also joins us with the Anas al-Libi abduction rendition out of Tripoli. Al-Libi is under indictment by the United States for his role in terror attacks on U.S. assets. However, at the same time, he's a significant player in the matrix of the jihadists, not just Al-Qaeda, but also in the Islamic Maghreb, throughout the Ummah. This is North Africa. This is the supposedly liberated Libya. But we have the strange fact that al-Libi was living in Tripoli. According to his family, he was applying for work at the oil ministry. You never know. People say things. According to his sons, he was abducted by Libyan-accented men. We can believe they were working in some coordination with the U.S. because we're now given facts that al-Libi is in U.S. custody, perhaps. Tom, a very good evening to you. You identify him in your Long War Journal posting as core al-Qaeda. What does that mean? Good evening, Tom.
Well, good evening, John. It means he's a guy who's been close to al-Qaeda's senior leadership for a long time, who's clearly serving al-Qaeda's interests. You know, one of the things we've pushed back on is that there really is no formal definition of core al-Qaeda. This is a term that's widely used in the intelligence community and by the Obama administration, which has no formal definition. However you want to define core al-Qaeda, this guy's clearly in it.
In it, reaching back into the 20th century. He's 49 years old, so he's an accomplished rascal all these years. The puzzle, has he been hiding in Tripoli? Do we know why it is that he was living apparently so open-facedly in a modern capital that is under the control of what looks to be a sympathetic government?
Well, he certainly wasn't hiding in Tripoli. There have been reports for over a year now that he was living freely there. So it wasn't exactly like he was trying to evade security forces or anything of the sort. Actually, last year in August of 2012, this report published by the Library of Congress in conjunction with the Defense Department identified him, Abu Anas al-Libi, as the builder of al-Qaeda's clandestine network in Libya. So this is a guy who they said was dispatched to Libya by al-Qaeda's senior leadership, including Ayman al-Zawahiri, basically to establish al-Qaeda and implement al-Qaeda's plan for post-Gaddafi Libya.
I believe I'm correct in saying Abu Anas al-Libi is the man who was sought by the British authorities and fled Great Britain early in this century and was associated with a document left behind that's called the Manchester document. I think I have the same man. Sometimes they change their names. So he's long been an al-Qaeda representative. One final detail about his capture or his abduction or transferring from Tripoli to a U.S. ship. We're told that he's going to be brought back for prosecution in the United States. Libya is objecting vociferously about this, Tom. And you mentioned that he was part of al-Qaeda's network in Libya or in the Islamic Maghreb. Does that mean that we can say that Anas al-Libi could have information about Benghazi?
It doesn't mean he necessarily does, but I certainly have written that it's something that you should be questioned about. I mean, basically, if you think about what's going on inside Libya, it's sort of a constellation of al-Qaeda actors, and he was one of the brightest stars in that constellation. It's natural to assume that he would know some of the other players and maybe even giving them directions or ordering them or certainly working with them. And so some of those other players include guys who we know in organizations who were directly involved in the September 11, 2012 attack in Benghazi. So this is the type of thing that certainly U.S. counterterrorism officials, intelligence officials should be pursuing, both in their questioning of Abu Anas al-Libi, but also in the exploitation of any media, hard drives, computers, that sort of thing that's recovered alongside him. And I don't know that sort of type of stuff was recovered with him, but if it was, that's one of the things they should be looking for.
We'll come back to this because Libya is a major mystery for the Obama administration ever since Benghazi, and now we've captured a major al-Qaeda suspect in a country where the jihadists launched a successful assassination raid against the United States more than a year ago. Bill Roggio joins us from the Foundation of the Defense of Democracy's Long War Journal as well. The raid in Somalia. Bill, the explanations I've been getting all day from my information overseas is that this was a failed raid, or is understood as a failed raid. How is the Defense Department presenting it?
Yeah, the Defense Department certainly is not going to present it as a failed raid, but I think it's accurate to describe it as such. They went in to go get a target, and they were unable to get him. Shabab is, I think, reasonably able to claim that they repelled an attack. The Department of Defense is claiming that they ended the raid to capture, and this is a senior Shabab leader, is Kunyat is Igrima. He's said to be Shabab's intelligence basically the leader of their external operations, the guy that plot attacks. So he's certainly wanted. The Department of Defense saying that they cut off the attack to prevent civilian casualties, and Shabab is, I think, legitimately able to say they were able to beat off an American attack by the most elite.
And what was the mission
when they killed Bin Laden?
What was the mission, Bill? What does the DoD say was the reason for launching what looks to be an air, sea, land attack?
Yeah, they said that he's closely associated with two senior al-Qaeda leaders who were previously targeted and killed in Somalia, Saleh Ali-Saleh Nabhan and Fazl Muhammad, who both of them were top leaders in al-Qaeda East Africa, as well as leaders in Shabab, involved in Kenya, Tanzania. The military said that they had the justification under the authorization to use military force in order to conduct the raid. So they viewed him as being dangerous, and I suspect he's possibly linked to the plot in Kenya or not the plot, but the attack in Kenya against the Westgate Mall.
Bill, was there any mention in your information of other transnational jihadists in the camp or in the area? Did they just name this one Kenyan and no mention of other characters or players? No other countries named?
There was supposedly what was described in a Somali newspaper as a Swedish Somali, as well as a Sudanese national. The Sudanese national is said to be a member in Shabab's intelligence unit. The Swedish national, both of these guys were named, but nobody said what the Swedish Somali, what his job was, and they both were described as senior foreign fighters and that work with Shabab.
No mention of Chechnya.
No mention of Chechnya. I saw press reports on that initially, but I didn't put much stock in those first reports and so on.
Tom, just to flag this for you, because I want to go back and talk about Anas al-Libi some more and Libya. This particular raid, it's very similar to a French commando raid that happened early this year. I believe it was January, February, sometime during the winter. That was also disappointing. Does this tell us that these raids are good for the posture? Does this intimidate jihadists? Does this intimidate anybody to launch what looks to be a failed raid against an armed camp?
Well, I mean, basically, if you look at the score over the weekend, it's 1-1. You know, we got the guy in Libya and failed to get the guy in Somalia, so it's sort of a draw overall in the big scheme of things. But you know, the bottom line here is, and this is really a point that we have to underscore, is that when you look at the targets of both raids, these are both guys who, according to credible reporting, were carrying out the orders of al-Qaeda's General Command, headquartered in Pakistan/South Asia. I think that's kind of remarkable. I mean, much of what's been said in this country about al-Qaeda and how it's structured is that the core of al-Qaeda is something distinct from all these affiliated groups, and they're not part of this cohesive challenge to the U.S. and its allies. And yet here, over the weekend, U.S. Special Forces had to come in and launch 2 raids against guys who were operating under orders from al-Qaeda senior leadership in Libya and Somalia, far from South Asia. That's really remarkable if you think about it.
Tom, Joscelyn, and Bill Roggio, the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. When we come back, Syria, al-Qaeda in Syria, and also operations in Afghanistan, Pakistan. One Islamic community, the Ummah. Al-Qaeda is very comfortable moving over this vast landscape. I'm John Batchelor.